Hi, this is Group 6. We are going to talk about Dokdo in our presentation. There are four major sections of the presentation. Firstly, we will give some background information about the island, such as the location and history. Second, we will focus on the dispute between South Korea and Japan over the island after all these years. Then we will look at the various efforts of South Korean public, especially the celebrities, to raise awareness about the island and how they show their love for the island. And finally, we will analyze and explain South Korean films which talk about Dokdo. And let's begin the first section.
I'm going to go over a brief summary of what Dokdo and its geographical features and some of a short history of Dokdo. Firstly, let's take a look into what Dokdo is. Okay, what is Dokdo? Dokdo is known as Dokdo Island and Takeshima in Japanese. It is located in the East Sea, Donghae Bada in Korean. Made up of altogether of 90 islets and reefs formed by volcanic rocks in the Cenozoic era estimated around 4.5 to 2.6 million years ago. Total of 37 islets recognized as permanent land. Some people may think it is just an island itself, but it is actually represents the group of islands altogether. Um, as, as of February 2017, there are 2 civilian residents, 2 government officials, 6 lighthouse managers, and 40 members of the Coast Guard living on the island. Since the South Korean Coast Guard was sent into the islets, civilian travel has been subject to South Korean government approval. They have claimed that the reason for this is that the islet group is designated as a nature reserve. The weather on the island is warm and humid, with occasional snowfall in the winter with average temperature of 12 Celsius, and it also rains 150 days a year on average. I move on to geographical features of Dokdo Island. Dokdo is also called the Liancourt Rocks. It derived from French-English name of the islets, Liancourt, the name of French whaling ship which came close to being wrecked on the rocks in 1849. Consists of 2 main islets and numerous surrounding rocks. The 2 main islets are called Seodo. In Korean, it means Western Island, and Dongdo, um, which means Eastern Island in Korean. It is 84.7 kilometers distant from Ulleungdo, an island apart from Seoul, apart from Korea, and 157.5 from Oki Islands of Japan. Dokdo is almost twice as close to Ulleungdo than Oki Islands in Donghae Bada. The western island is the larger of the two, with the wider base and higher peak, while the eastern island offers more usable surface area. In depth, Sodo has height of it has a height of 168.5 meters with 88,740 meters square area and 2.6 circumstances, and has a small portion of residential quarters. In contrast, Dongdo shares 98.6 meters and 73,296 meters square area, with 2.8 circumstances and holds a lighthouse at the corner. A brief summary of Dokdo. Some of the historians in Korea have stated that even before 17th century, people in Ulleungdo, which only 87.5 distance away from Dokdo, their main survivor and trade was fishing. Considering that geographical feature, that on a sunny day, Dokdo Island is visible for Ulleungdo. People back in there have fished around Dokdo Island and possibility of residence over the island. In 19th century, Japanese government rules that Dokdo is a Korean territory. 1949, Treaty of San Francisco states that Dokdo belongs to Korea. However, in December 29th of the same year, 1949, on sixth draft of Treaty of San Francisco, Dokdo was named as a continent of Japan. After 1950 Korean War, Korean Air Defense Identification Zone (KADIZ), they state Dokdo as Korean territory and will treat Dokdo as Korean territory and defend it if necessary. There's still sovereignty over the island between Korea and Japan, and we'll discuss this further.
Okay, so now we're going to look at the South Korea-Japan dispute over Dokdo. So Dokdo has remained a serious source of contention between Japan and South Korea since Japan lodged a diplomatic protest against South Korea's proclamations of sovereignty over the adjacent seas on January 28, 1952. But for the most part, Dokdo has had a long history of conflict and disagreement between the two countries. So Korea's link to Dokdo goes back to the 6th century and the records of Samguk Sagi, which is Korea's oldest history text. And according to the text, in the year 512, Yi Sabu, a government official of Silla, which was one of 3 ancient Korean kingdoms, conquered Usangguk, which is now located on Ulongdo on behalf of the kingdom of Silla. And Koreans today maintain that this established Korean sovereignty over Dokdo, as the island was sort of dependent or related to Usangguk. In the late 17th century, Korea and Japan wound up making diplomatic contact regarding the ownership of Ulongdo and possibly Dokdo as well, as a result of conflict over fishing rights. And this led to the Bukh case, which actually led to the first contact between Japan and Korea and how their discussion over who owns Dokdo. In 1869, the Japanese Foreign Ministry sent 3 officials to Korea to figure out the situation in which Ulongdo and Dokdo had become Korean territories. And in 1870, they came to the conclusion that Korea owned and controlled both islands. On October 25, 1900, the Korean government reaffirmed its sovereignty over Ulongdo and Dokdo by issuing Imperial Ordinance No. 41, which increased its administrative rights over both islands. On February 22, 1905, Japan's Shimane Prefecture issued Prefectural Notice No. 40, which incorporated Dokdo into its jurisdiction. In November of 1905, Japan eventually made Korea its protectorate with the Protectorate Treaty. And 5 years later, in August 1910, Korea officially became a Japanese colony. Following its independence from Japanese control, the issue of Dokdo arose once again. In January 1952, the Korean government issued a presidential proclamation of sovereignty over the adjacent seas, and this in turn revived the controversy over Dokdo, as a line was drawn with Dokdo being on the Korean side, and of course, Japan refuted the claim. On April 20, 1953, a voluntary Dokdo Guard of Korean nationals was established, and they became the first permanent inhabitants of Dokdo. They stayed on the island for about 3.5 years until the Korean police assumed official responsibility for the island's defense on December 30, 1956, and since then, the Korean police have always been deployed on the island. In the 1990s, Dokdo was once again brought to the forefront due to a new round of diplomatic and domestic developments. And since the 90s up until today, Dokdo remains a contested issue. So, how do the Japanese view Dokdo, or in their case, Takeshima, today? So for the most part, the Japanese argue that Dokdo was not included when they lawfully returned Korean territories after their loss in World War II. And as a result, they argue that if any claims are to be made, international law should get involved and deal with it. Another fact in relation to how Japanese view Dokdo is that, for the most part, Dokdo has been of secondary importance and interest, and not many people have known about the issue at all until it was promoted and brought up by the government. And there's Takeshima Day, which was actually created when the Japanese Shimane Prefecture Assembly passed an ordinance in March 2005. And this, of course, resulted in a lot of protests from Korea. How Koreans view Dokdo today. So in contrast, Koreans strongly feel for Dokdo. According to a 2008 survey, about 98.2% of Koreans considered Dokdo to be their territory. And when it comes to their interaction with Japan on Dokdo, the Koreans see no reason to negotiate with Japan over the land, and they are, for the most part, unwilling to accept any proposal that deprives them of absolute control over the island.
Raising awareness through the media. This section will look at the various efforts of South Korean celebrities to raise awareness about Dokdo and their love for the island. The first celebrity I want to talk about is Kim Jang-hoon. He is a singer, and he's well known for expressing his love for Dokdo. In 2011, he held a live concert on South Korea's Independence Day. For the concert, he was cheered by about 300 supporters who accompanied him all the way to the island, waving the taegukgi. In 2012, he participated in an event where swimmers from Korea National Sports University swim from Ulsan Jukbyeon Port to Dokdo. And in 2016, Kim Jang-un held charity match of Baduk with the famous Baduk player Lee Se-dol. The next celebrity I want to talk about is a famous singer named Lee Seung-chul. So Lee Seung-chul held a concert in Dokdo and performed a song that he wrote called The Day. Now he also conducted Hollo Ariran, which was performed by With You. And With You is a choir of young North Korean defectors. Due to this event, Lee Seung-chul was denied entry to Japan in 2016. Only that, Japan cancelled airing the Korean drama A Man Called God, which starred Song Il-kook. On the left, there is a tweet by Song Il-kook right after he got denied from entering Japan. The tweet says, "I have nothing to say to what Japanese Deputy Foreign Minister said. I'm just calling my son's name. 대한, 민국, and 만세. And the names of his triplets mean Hooray, the Republic of Korea." The next celebrities I want to talk about is Bang Myung-soo and Din in a show called Infinite Challenge. Infinite Challenge is one of the most popular variety shows in South Korea, and they had a project called The Great Legacy, aka 위대한 유산. So within the project, comedian Bang Myung-soo and the rapper Din wrote a song about Dokdo called Dokdori. The song is about how Korea has historical proof that Dokdo is a Korean territory and how Koreans should all enjoy themselves at Dokdo. During the performance, copies of Dokdo Island registered were scattered to the audience, and the performance was very memorable. And I'll briefly go through what K-pop idols did on social media. Boy idol group called UKISS in 2011 left a message on Twitter claiming Dokdo as South Korean territory. And after school's Lizzie posted a photo of herself with the Korean flag over her head, at Dokdo with the caption, "Dokdo is our land" on Instagram. Next, Super Junior Siwon tweeted "Dokdo is our land" on Twitter. And Girls' Generation, also known as SNSD, sang "Dokdo is our land" during the rehearsal of 2008 Dream concert. Beast reported to have said Dokdo is Korean territory at an event in Los Angeles in 2010. Before I end this topic about raising awareness through the media by the celebrities, I want to bring up one of the most famous person. He is the soccer player Park Jong-woo. Park Jong-woo held up a sign, "Dokdo is our land," after South Korea's 2-0 victory over Japan in the London Olympics. He was barred from receiving his bronze medal due to this action. But do you think that was actually necessary?
So how is Dokdo viewed in our society? If June talked about how Dokdo is viewed in our society through using media, I'll talk about how Dokdo is viewed through using films in different time period. So throughout the course of history, the mainstream idea on Dokdo had changed. Oftentimes, movies does good job on representing the social norm of that specific period. So these are the in this presentation, I'll talk about 3 movies. So number 3, Fun Movie and Sorry Dokdo.
리온노 료도 난데요. 역시 일본 땅이라고 HeeMin이다. 한 번만 더 물어봐라. 뭐 이치도聞いてます. 타케시마와 독도는 한국의 領土では 한국 땅이 ないです. 아니다. 이래이씨. 야매때는 잘해줘この野郎. 야매라. 야, 너 내가 다시 와서 물어볼 거야. 호박 깨지고 싶지 않으면 독도가 누군 땅인지 확실하게 알아둬. 존만한 새끼, 홍굴한 데서 개기고 있어. 씨.
Number 3 is a 1997 Korean gangster movie. It's a comedy film directed by Song Neung-han. It stars famous actors such as Han Seok-kyu and Choi Min-seok. So if you see the film, as the film shows, like, people response are very emotional. They argue that it's Korean, Dokdo belongs to Korean, but they can't argue why specifically. However, we shouldn't blame them or criticize them for such problem, because if we think about it, when someone asks you why a certain property belongs to you, it is oftentimes tricky to answer why. We tend to answer it as because it's mine or something like that. Moreover, the problem was just recently becoming famous in media, so in a sense, it was very natural for them to not know why it belongs to Korea, or at least give a good logical argument on it. And also, the film was from a gangster point of view, but it did pretty represent how Koreans generally feel about Dokdo. Next one is Fun Movie. This movie is a parody movie, like it's a first parody movie in Korea. The title itself is also a parody to Scary Movie, and it has multiple parody elements in it.
자네 혹시 다케시마에 가본 적이 있나?
독도 말이냐?
난 자위대에 근무할 때 먼 발치에서 다케시마를 본 적이 있지. 다케시마가 니들 땅이라고 바락 우기는데 니들이 다케시마에 관해 아는 게 뭐가 있어? 다케시마는
독도는 크게 동도와 서도로 구성되어 있어. 동도는 64,698평방미터, 서도는 91,773평방미터, 위치는 동경 131도 52분 22초, 북위 37도 14분 12초, 울릉도에서 동남쪽으로 90km 떨어져 있으며 제일 가까운 일본의 섬은 시마네 현의 옥기섬인데 160km 떨어져 있지.
다케시마는 역사적으로
독도가 위험지에 편입된 것은 서기 512년 지중왕 13년이지.
큰 니들 사정이.
And if you see the movie is about a Japanese and Korean trying to reconcile their relationship through soccer. However, Japanese right-wing lunatics are trying to sabotage this attempt through assassination. And there's this specific part, and it shows how people now start to think the situation more logically, and also the movie shows how there is tension between two countries. Lastly, Sorry Dokdo is a 2008 documentary by Choi Hyun-mook. So if you see the movie poster, as you can see, it says 잘 먹겠습니다. It's making fun of Japanese accent. Also, it's emphasizing that how Japanese people are trying to take Korean territory. And this idea is also emphasized through using ball and a flag and ball with a Dokdo in it. So this film is about a 80-year-old couple living in Dokdo with elementary school kid. And this film actually touches on sentimentalism, and it's also very logical to when it's arguing against Japanese claim that it's their land. Their life in Dokdo is very simple and nature friendly. Also, if you see the film, you could feel the love of the old couple to each other and to child. The fact that the old couple lives in Dokdo is a claim that we as a Korean have been actually using the island, and it is sort of a proof that Korea has real control of the land. So it's it has a very strong message.
During the presentation, we have discussed some basic information about Dokdo, the typical location and long-traveled history of the island bring dispute and conflicts to Korea and Japan. South Korean public and lots of celebrities try to raise public awareness about the island, and there are many South Korean films told the story about the island as well. The territorial dispute is one of the most complex issues between two countries. Hoping South Korean and Japanese governments would solve the dispute in a peaceful way in the future. This is the presentation of Group 6, and thanks for watching.